Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at some really fascinating research
Yeah.
in neuroscience that I think is going to kind of blow your mind a little bit. It has to do with how the environment during pregnancy can actually influence brain development.
Yeah, that's right.
We're going to be taking a look at an article from Neuroscience News
Okay.
called Prenatal Stress Hormones Alter Brain Development. And I don't know about you, but I'm really curious to kind of unpack this and see what...
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
It's definitely an area that's sparking a lot of new research.
Okay.
Scientists are really kind of zeroing in on how things like stress or even medications that are taken during pregnancy can actually shape the brain's wiring before a baby is even born.
Wow. So, like, literally while the baby is still in the womb,
Exactly.
these things are already starting to have an impact.
Yeah.
So
Pretty profound.
let's talk about the specifics of this study.
Okay.
They focus on something called glucocorticoids.
Yeah.
Now, can you explain what those are for folks who might not be familiar with that term?
Yeah, so glucocorticoids are hormones that our bodies naturally produce,
Okay.
especially when we're under stress.
Mm.
But they also happen to be critical for fetal development.
Okay.
In fact, synthetic versions of these hormones are often prescribed when there's a risk of premature birth
Oh.
because they help the baby's lungs mature more quickly.
Oh, so it's actually something that is given to help the baby survive in those really critical early moments.
Yeah, it can be a real lifesaver.
But now we're finding out that it might come with some other implications for
Right.
the brain as well.
Potentially, yeah.
The article mentions that millions of babies are actually exposed to these synthetic glucocorticoids every year.
That's right. About 10% of all births in 2020 were premature.
Wow.
So understanding how these medications affect brain development in the long term is becoming increasingly important.
Yeah, it's not just about surviving those first few critical moments after birth, but about what might happen, weeks, months, years down the line.
Exactly. It's about those potential lifelong impacts.
Right. Okay. So how did the researchers actually study this?
Yeah.
I mean, they couldn't exactly track brain development in real time
Right.
inside the womb.
They couldn't very easily do that. No.
So what did they do?
Well, they use something called brain organoids.
Brain
Organoids.
So think of them like tiny mini brains grown in a lab from human stem cells.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It allows scientists to observe brain development in a very controlled environment.
So they're basically creating these little mini brains in a dish.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's pretty high tech.
Yeah, it's cutting-edge science.
So what did they do with these mini brains then?
Well, they exposed some of them to synthetic glucocorticoids for an extended period, mimicking what a fetus might experience during a premature pregnancy.
Okay.
Then they compared them to a control group that wasn't exposed.
And what happened? Was
Oh.
there a difference? Yeah, there was a significant difference. The brain organoids that were exposed to the synthetic glucocorticoids, they showed a shift in the balance of neuron types.
Neuron types. Can you remind me about
Yeah.
neuron types?
Sure. So we have different types of neurons in our brains,
Right.
right? Some are what we call excitatory, which means they stimulate other neurons.
Okay.
And then some are inhibitory, which, as the name suggests, they inhibit or kind of dampen activity.
Gotcha.
And you need a balance of both for a healthy brain.
So what you're saying is that the synthetic glucocorticoids kind of mess with that balance.
Precisely, yeah. They saw an increase in the inhibitory neurons and a decrease in the excitatory ones.
So this imbalance in neuron types, it's kind of like the brain's wiring is getting crossed.
That's a great way to think about it, yeah.
What could that actually look like in a child's development?
Well, it could manifest in a lot of different ways, from difficulties with social interaction and communication
Okay.
to sensory sensitivities or even repetitive behaviors.
We've seen similar imbalances in genetic studies of people with autism.
That's right.
So now we're finding out that environmental factors during pregnancy, like being exposed to certain medications,
Right.
could also lead to this kind of imbalance.
Exactly.
It has huge implications.
Yeah, it adds a whole new layer to our understanding of how a baby's brain is shaped before birth,
Wow.
and potentially why some children face developmental challenges later on.
Right.
This study doesn't give us all the answers by any means,
Right.
but it definitely raises some really important questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think
Yeah.
we're just getting started with this conversation.
For sure.
So stay tuned. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back to delve even deeper into this research.
Yeah, it really challenges the traditional way of thinking, that brain development is purely a matter of genetics.
Right.
This research is showing us that the environment during pregnancy, those 9 months before birth, can be just as critical.
It makes you wonder, is it just medications that we need to be thinking about here, or?
Right. What about other things, that a mom might experience during pregnancy, like stress from work or relationships or finances?
Yeah.
Could those things also have an impact?
Absolutely. Any kind of significant stress can trigger the release of those glucocorticoids.
Oh,
And this research suggests that prolonged exposure to these hormones, whether they're naturally occurring or synthetic, can have this ripple effect on the developing brain.
Okay.
It's like a domino effect in a way.
So a stressful environment could potentially make a fetus more susceptible to these changes in brain wiring that we're talking about.
That's the idea. Yeah.
And what's even more intriguing is this idea that genes and environment might actually be working together here.
That's right.
A fetus with a genetic predisposition to a certain condition might be even more sensitive to the effects of prenatal stress.
Exactly.
So it's not like a simple equation.
Yeah.
It's this complex interaction between nature and nurture.
Yeah, it's really a partnership.
And understanding that partnership is key to developing more effective strategies for supporting both mothers and their babies.
Okay, so this is all fascinating.
Right.
But I have to admit, it's also a little bit overwhelming.
Sure, I understand.
If everyday stress can have such a big impact, what does that mean for expecting parents?
It's important not to jump to conclusions here.
Right.
This research is still in its early stages, and it's not about causing anxiety,
Right.
but about empowering parents with knowledge.
Okay.
And that knowledge can help us make more informed choices.
So what can parents do with this information then?
Well, first and foremost, it really underscores the importance of good prenatal care,
Okay.
both physical and mental. Managing stress during pregnancy is crucial.
Right.
There are a lot of ways to do that,
Yeah.
from mindfulness and meditation techniques to seeking support from loved ones or professionals.
Okay. Those are all great things.
Yeah.
But what about situations where those synthetic glucocorticoids are absolutely necessary? Like in the case of a premature birth.
Yeah.
Are there any alternatives being explored?
Yeah, researchers are actively investigating ways to minimize the potential risks.
Okay.
For instance, they're working on more targeted drug delivery systems.
Hmm.
Imagine being able to deliver the medication directly to the baby's lungs,
Okay.
minimizing the exposure to the brain.
That sounds incredible.
Yeah, it's really promising.
Are there any other approaches that are being looked at?
There's also research into identifying alternative compounds that could provide the same benefits for lung development without the potential neurological effects
Okay.
of the synthetic glucocorticoids.
So kind of getting all of the benefits without the potential risks.
Exactly. That's the holy grail.
Wow. It sounds like there's a lot of really exciting research in the pipeline.
Definitely. This study feels like just the tip of the iceberg,
Yeah.
opening up so many new avenues to explore.
It's a very dynamic field right now.
We've talked a lot about the potential negative impacts.
Yeah. Of prenatal stress in these medications.
Sure.
Is there anything in this research that suggests potential positive effects? Could certain environmental factors actually make the brain more resilient or adaptable?
That's a great question. And while this particular study didn't directly address that, it's definitely a possibility worth exploring. The brain, especially during those early stages of development, is incredibly plastic, meaning it's constantly adapting and changing in response to its environment.
So it's kind of like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
That's one way to think about it, yeah.
So certain types of stimulation during pregnancy might actually promote healthy brain development, leading to more robust neural connections and greater cognitive flexibility.
Potentially, yes.
So what kind of stimulation are we talking about here?
Okay.
Reading to the baby bump, playing classical music.
Well, those things certainly can't hurt.
Right.
But I'm thinking more along the lines of exposure to diverse languages, tactile stimulation through massage, or simply creating a loving and supportive environment for the mother.
So good old-fashioned TLC.
Exactly.
That's something we can all get behind.
And while we don't have definitive scientific proof, yet there's growing evidence suggesting that these positive experiences can have a lasting impact on brain development.
Okay. So maybe there's hope for us stressed out, sleep-deprived parents to be after all.
Maybe so.
It's all about balance, right?
Absolutely. Finding that balance between being informed and aware of the potential risks while also fostering a positive and nurturing environment
Right.
for both mother and baby.
It's been a fascinating journey so far. This deep dive has really made me think about the crucial role that we play as parents and as a society
Right.
in shaping the brains of future generations.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Those early years, especially that prenatal period,
Yeah.
really lay the foundation for a lifetime of brain health.
Wow.
The choices that we make during this time have ripple effects that extend far beyond those 9 months.
You know, we've covered so much in this deep dive.
Yeah.
But there's one question that just keeps coming back to me.
Okay.
And I bet it's on a lot of our listeners' minds, too.
Sure.
We've been talking about these potential effects of synthetic glucocorticoids.
Right.
And we know that millions of babies are born prematurely every year.
Yeah.
So what does this research really tell us about the long-term impacts on brain health for those children?
Well, it's a really crucial question, and it's the one that researchers are really trying to answer more definitively.
Right.
This study does shed some light,
Yeah.
on how these medications can alter brain development.
Okay.
Like on a molecular level. But as we've discussed,
Yeah.
there's still a lot of unknowns.
So we can't say for certain that every baby exposed to synthetic glucocorticoids is going to have, developmental challenges later on.
Exactly. This research doesn't establish like a direct cause and effect relationship,
Okay.
between exposure and specific conditions like autism.
Gotcha.
It's more about raising awareness of a potential concern
Right.
and prompting further investigation.
So what kind of research is needed to really get a handle on those long-term implications?
Well, long-term studies are really essential.
Okay.
We need to follow children who were exposed to synthetic glucocorticoids as fetuses
Okay.
and track their development over time.
Okay, so it's really about just gathering more data.
Exactly. We need that data to get a clearer picture of the actual risks and whether there are other factors that might be contributing to, individual differences in outcomes.
And are there any promising new treatments on the horizon that might help minimize those risks?
Yeah, there are some exciting possibilities.
Okay.
One area of research is really focused on developing those more targeted drug delivery systems.
Right.
Remember we talked about that?
Yeah.
Instead of flooding the entire system with the medication.
Okay.
The goal is to deliver it directly to the lungs, where it's needed most,
Right.
reducing the amount that reaches the brain.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What else are they looking at?
Scientists are also searching for alternative compounds that could offer the same benefits for lung development, but without those potential neurological downsides.
Right, without the risks.
Exactly. It's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
But it's a really important one.
Finding that way to get all of the benefits without the potential risks.
The best of both worlds.
Yeah. Well, this has been a truly incredibly thought-provoking deep dive, I have to say.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
We've learned about the amazing complexity of brain development,
For sure.
the impact of prenatal stress and medications.
Right.
And even gotten a glimpse into the future of treatment approaches.
Yeah, and I think the biggest takeaway for our listeners today
Okay.
is that while this research does raise some important questions, it also empowers us with knowledge.
Okay.
Understanding how the brain develops
Mm-hmm.
helps us make more informed decisions
Right.
that can support healthy outcomes for ourselves and for generations to come.
Absolutely. And amidst all of the, scientific findings and the research, let's not forget the power of, nurturing love and support.
Absolutely. The human touch is irreplaceable.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this incredible journey into the world of neuroscience.
My pleasure.
Until next time, keep those brains buzzing.